Today's episode is going to be brought to you by the Cedar Rapids Titans Arena football team, which will have their first game live on Round Guide Radio February 15th. Also, since it's a Scotty Melvin episode, we'll call Pure Apex Power Supplements as a sponsor for this one, as well as Smithburg Auto, Henshaw Trailer Sales, and the Packwood Locker. We've got Scotty Melvin waiting with us. Welcome to the program, Scotty.
Hey, how's it going, Dave?
It's going great. Glad you decided to chime in. I'm not even 100% sure what you want even to talk about, but when I get a call from you that says you want to come on, I don't ask no questions. We just put you right on.
Well, we knew the break would kind of put a halt to things for a bit, I'm sure. You know, you still keep up with your coaches' interviews and whatnot, but things are back in full swing now. I've been able to get to a couple of games, and they were fun, and I'm going to get to some more. Thinking about going up to Waco tonight, if I read it right. They're at home against Northland.
They are?
And I may not get to see a game tomorrow night because we're still in football season for Scotty as far as the college football playoffs go. So I may stay at home, watch football on TV, and then skim through some games, whatever I can find on streams or whatever. So, but yeah, the first game I got to go to after the New Year was Fort Madison hosting the Washington Demons, and it was a really interesting game. I wanted to see our guy Darius back for his first action of the season. And, they claim he's stretched out to 6'10" now, and he looks pretty darn close to that, if he's not all of it. And I just want to see what he might bring to the table for the winless Bloodhounds, because I feel like they've had the Nolan Guzman show, and they've got some good pieces around him, but they struggle to score. Nolan has to shoulder the load, and as you know, one guy just can't do it all. So I wanted to see what the Bloodhounds could bring to the table now the second half of the season, after the break with Foy back in the lineup. And they did lose, but they definitely look like a team that will win some games, Dave.
Oh yeah, they're real close. They've got some winnable games, I think, coming right up too.
I agree. I think they're gonna, without looking at the schedule, I think they're a team that can beat about anybody on a given night with the current lineup. And like I said, Washington kind of ran out on them in the first half, partly because Foy got in foul trouble early and had to sit a good chunk of that first half. The other thing I noticed about him, I had said there in the stands after watching that first quarter or so when he wasn't in the game, he's moving like a kid who's playing his first game of the season. Everybody else moving a little bit faster, reacting a little bit faster. And I thought, well, he might get that back tonight. It might take a week, might take a couple weeks. I don't know. Well, when he came off the bench in the second half, he was a different guy. He was reacting better, looking more in sync with everybody, and looking less like a guy that was playing his first real game action of the year. And I think he dumped in like 16 points before it was all said and done. I had several rebounds, blocked some shots, was looking at every part of the big man that you want to have there. And they made a run. I mean, Washington had a lead of at least 20 points or so there late in the first half. Bloodhounds cut into it a little bit before the buzzer, but then when they got Foy back out on the court there in the third, man, they went on a big run. Got within like 8, and I thought, we got us a game. It might come down to the wire. Well, but the thing about the Washington Demons, now talk about them a little bit, they are very balanced scoring. They're not big, and that's going to hurt them in some games. It hurt them at times in this game. But they've got, 5 guys that can score a ton of points any given time, and we had, I think, 4 of them in double figures, well into double figures, if I remember right, on this particular night. That's something Fort Madison needs to get more of his balanced scoring. But I saw a lot of bright spots for the Bloodhounds, and a couple of really good teams, I thought, matching up there that night. And it was an enjoyable experience. I love going to the Hound Dome. They have the loudest PA of any court, stadium, whatever in Southeast Iowa. I swear, Dave, you can't hear yourself think when they're playing music in that place, man. It's kind of jamming in there when they get a basketball game going.
Okay. I've been there, so I know. It's exciting to be in the Hound Dome. I've had some games at Fort Madison. We haven't got over there, but I think we did have them on. Yeah, they played Van Buren in the game there earlier this week, or the first game of the year in that round robin. They got to win that night. So maybe all I need is Round Guy Ready to come back and spark them to another win, and I wouldn't be above doing that. Maybe I'll catch them in Fairfield when they're playing. They got a game in Fairfield coming up real soon, so might be a good chance to check them out. Tell me a little bit about the other game that you were at.
Oh, gosh. Now, let me think for just a second. Where have I been since then? Oh, just the other night. Notre Dame, West Burlington. I told you a little bit about that game. packed house in West Burlington. The Falcon fans, the student section, they were rocking. They really wanted to keep that home winning streak going. Everybody in the community down here knows that it was going to be a tall order to keep that home court winning streak going that the Falcons have enjoyed since 2022. And according to Coach Cody Van Fleet, the last team to beat West Burlington on their home court 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago, was the Fairfield Trojans. So it's been a while. But Notre Dame got the win there. West Burlington fought hard. They've got a darn good team themselves. I was a little shocked. I hadn't seen West Burlington in person this year. And as you know, I was there every night last year to watch that great bunch of kids they had. And I knew they had some good talent coming back. Not that you could replace a Mason Watkins or a Quincy Collins and some of these other guys, but they still got Figgy. They've still got some guards that are good and some that were coming up that I had seen in JV. One player, though, that Silas
Monzo.
Yeah. I was not prepared for how much that kid has grown, Dave. He is a big kid, strong, held his own against Payne Prossman, who, as we all know, is a big, strong center forward down here for Notre Dame. And I felt like Silas, at only a sophomore, held his own against a big, strong senior there. And I think he's got a lot of upside for these Falcons. I want to see him on the football field, man, because he's 6'4", big body, big, strong legs.
Well,
it's aggressive. I liked him.
I'm a Silas Lotso fan. Anyway, yeah. Seemed like it'd be a cool name to have. Isn't it? Seems like the guy that have his name on an 1880s wanted poster or something. You know what I mean? We're looking for Silas Lotso. Yeah, I'm a big fan. They're just he's a big part of that West Burlington. He's what's fun. He's one of the things that's really fun to watch them play.
He is, and they got Figgy, and they've got a good supporting cast. They're going to win plenty of games. I feel like they've had a fairly strong schedule to date, and they're 6-4, so not doing bad at all. But this night they ran into the buzzsaw. It was the Shea show, and when he got rolling, man, he put up 35 points, was hitting from everywhere, 3 big slam dunks, hit some threes, slash into the basket, making some dazzling passes to teammates because he's going to get a lot of focus when he's got the ball in his hands. And so he got everybody involved like he does. He's, you can't call them a one-man show as much as he does shoulder the load and is kind of the star power player.
Are you talking about the Shea kid?
Yeah.
The Willie Mays of basketball?
That's the one. Yeah, he put on a show for us, man, and it was a lot of fun to watch. And they kind of ran away with it. There was a point in the second quarter early on, the Falcons led by like 5. I want to say it was like 16-11. If you look in the box score here, by the end of half, the Knights put up 25 points in that second quarter. Essentially had put the game away and just kept running away with it the whole second half. End up with a 79-46 win. And, looking as impressive as I've seen them a lot this year. And we were talking at work with some of the guys that know the basketball across this state. Remember last year when West Burlington was having their big run, and we had hopes that they were going to make that back-to-back trip to state, but they had to run into that Grandview Christian team that had them outsized, and was just going to be a monster opponent. They couldn't get past them. Valiant effort, but we don't think that 1A has that kind of team for Notre Dame to have to do the David versus Goliath thing against. We just don't see it. I'm not real well versed on what everybody's got across the state. We are going to learn a lot Saturday, Dave. They have to go up to Davenport Assumption, but not to play Assumption. They'll be playing another 1A rated team, Bellevue Marquette, who has a lot of history and success in basketball in this state. So that's going to tell us a lot. Both teams undefeated, both teams ranked in the top 10. I think Bellevue Marquette is number 6 in 1A, and of course Notre Dame's number 4. So that's a good one. I wish I could be there, but I'll be at the SEC Indian Hills game Saturday night. So
I heard you got tickets to that.
Yeah, they're trying to pack the stands, man, and bring back kind of the old vibe that game used to produce, And so I encourage anyone who wants to see some good college basketball locally, head on over to SEC. You can probably find somebody or a business or something around Burlington that's got comp tickets for you, so you won't even have to pay to get in because they do want to pack the seats. The streaming has kind of put a damper on that, and it's in the high school thing too. But let's face it, guys, it's better to go watch a game in person. And let me tell you, the kids really appreciate you showing up and sitting there and watching them play live. So if you can do it, I encourage people to do that.
Well, it sounds like a real exciting a couple games you got to. Do you have any other like general things you want to talk about basketball? Because I might have a football question or two for you.
Yeah, before we get to that, I wanted to go back to the Fort Madison game there. So I'm sitting there watching the game. I'm watching Nolan Guzman just go off. The kid is unstoppable. He's Shea Stevens of 3A. If he wants to take that ball to the hoop, Dave, and you've seen him, you're not stopping him. He's going to get there. He's getting fouled or getting a layup or both. And it was really fun to watch him. He put in like 18 points in the first half, but I said, gosh, that's all they have. It's not that they have a lacking of effort or talent. They've got some good players that were a lot of fun to watch, and I was really impressed with their sportsmanship and stuff like that. Them in Washington were playing physical against each other, playing hard. They were helping each other off the floor when they'd knock each other down, things like that. Really enjoyable game. A bunch of great kids played for Fort Madison, but one kid came off the bench, Dave, and I don't know if you've seen him play yet or not, to try to give them a little bit of boost, and I liked his fearlessness, and he was cold at first, but he ended up scoring some points, and he's a freshman, and I thought, gosh, he's awfully small. And I'm looking for through the roster right now, so I want to get his name right. Hang on just a second here. I've got the roster pulled up. Kid is listed at 5'7". I'm not sure that I believe it. He looks smaller than that. Okay, Jonah Tackett. Jonah Tackett. Have you heard Coach talk about Jonah Tackett at all? I can't remember.
No, but you told me they had a freshman that had it going on and on.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, gosh, if they could just get one or two other guys to just loosen up and not be so tentative with the ball when it came to putting it up. I mean, even if you miss some shots, Dave, then this sport, you eventually have to have somebody help your lead guy get some points on that board. As Jonah come off the bench and he didn't make his first few, but he was showing me that he was fearless in trying to help Nolan out, get some points on the board. Eventually some of those shots start falling. This little dude would take it in, and he would take it into the rack and get points and get fouled, and he was aggressive and fearless, and he's a freshman, and like I said, he's smaller than everybody on the floor. I was really impressed with him, so I made a note that when I got on the phone to talk to you about what I've been doing with these basketball games and where I've been, I had to mention this kid because he really impressed me. And I think if his teammates would kind of follow his lead and try to get Nolan a little bit help there. Now, if they got Foy back in the mix too, I think this Fort Madison team, for being winless so far, I think we're going to see some wins come. I think they're going to be a team to look out for in the postseason.
Well, speaking of that, and I'm agreeing with what you're saying there, Mount Pleasant is getting a couple big players. Noah Lang is back, and this other kid that got hurt in basketball, I want to say Heilman or something like that, he's back. So big game between Fairfield and Mount Pleasant this week there. Mount Pleasant, Fairfield, and Fort Madison are, trying to be the top of the middle, I guess would be kind of the way to put that. What do you think about those three teams?
You've heard me rave about I'm sorry, not Fort Madison, but
Mount Pleasant
from day one. And, I was just talking to one of their alumni, a guy that went to school there and played for them this morning. And we both kind of scratching our heads that they've got such a high level of talent and size, and they've kind of struggled to put it together. And it's just, I don't think it's a lack of effort or anything like that, or lack of playing well together. It's just, I can't even put my finger on it. And I've seen him in person once, and it's a tough thing. But like you said, they're getting some players back. We know they missed Noah Lang. He just adds more size to an already big team.
He's a big one.
He is. He's a big kid. And they've got some big kids, and he's the biggest. But what I heard was, and I think you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but that other player you're talking about was the point guard, right? Starting point guard. Okay, so in the game I saw, which was game one against Cedar Rapids, Washington, I felt like their main struggle there was cleanly handling the ball against pressure defense. As the other guards, maybe not as good at being floor general as this kid is, and I haven't seen him play yet. So
yeah, he's a big time player. I wish I could remember his name. I just heard it. Scott, I can't remember hardly what I had for breakfast anymore, and we covering so many teams and schools, but I think that SEC, I think Burlington, Keokuk, and Washington are clearly the top of that. That's the top three, but the next bunch, it's clearly up for grabs, isn't it?
I think so, and it's exciting. I think Keokuk's your clear-cut leader, but I'll tell you what.
I'm agreeing with you there, too.
They've got a heck of a start going, but they're coming off a loss to a smaller school there in Missouri. So, anything can happen. They definitely have the size advantage, but that's kind of out the window against Fort Madison now that Foy's back. So I'm real interested to see Foy and Clark go at it. I believe they meet up in Fort Madison here in a couple of weeks or so. I plan on making it to that if at all possible. So yeah, I think we've got some teams that are going to finish a lot better than they've started, especially in that 3A part of things. You got Burlington to throw in the mix there too. Those guys are pretty darn good. I watched them on TV the other night against the Fairfield Trojans. And, I wasn't paying real close attention because I had some other things going on, but I had it going on kind of in the background, and I'd check in with the game there. I felt like Burlington's one of those teams that just plays well together. There was not one guy that really stood out to me. It was just a team full of guys playing very well together, and they buried Fairfield that night. And
Yeah, they look like I talked to Coach Akey after the game, and I told him, you look like a well-oiled machine out there. I mean, it just everything that could go right did go right, and it just seemed like it wasn't. They weren't relying on just one guy. It was everybody doing a great job, and it just turned out to be a good game. Although Fairfield bounced back, and they get a win over the Centerville Big Red the very next night. And they kind of got their ship straightened out too. I know sometimes you take 3 weeks off and you take a bus ride clear down to Burlington, and Burlington's got that big time feel. You know what I mean? Those gyms are big and the crowds are big and everything, and they didn't come out there and play great. Eli Zillman does get a beautiful dunk in that game. He's a highlight reel. He got 19 points in the game against Centerville the next night. So maybe they'll be sharp up. They've got some, they got a winnable game against Mount Pleasant and a winnable game against Fort Madison and a winnable game against Pekin and a winnable game against Van Buren. So they may continue to righten their ship and try to pull themselves back into a big thing. But those are all going to be games anybody and everybody's going to want to be at, I'm sure.
yeah, I think the 3A is going to have a real exciting finish there. And I think, like I said, I can't say it enough. I think some of these teams that maybe aren't looking good record-wise right now aren't going to look nearly the same towards the end of the year here with all these games left. So we'll see how it plays out, but it's going to be exciting.
I'm going to ask you to handicap a couple games here for me, and one you're considering going to. There's just the one game I know of tonight, Northland and Waco. Waco, it seems like they'll find a quarter in every game to not play good, but in the overall, they got a pretty great winning record. They get a nice little win over Wapello, although they had to fight for it last Tuesday night. But they got a big challenge this week. I'm not sure they've got a game Friday night. I wasn't able to figure out whether they did or didn't. But you're considering making a trip up here.
Well, yeah, I'll be heading to Mount Pleasant to work here in a little bit, and I'll be there late enough that it makes sense to just drive on up to Wayland to watch this game. I believe it's in Wayland.
It is.
So and I can't say it enough, man. I love to be at the games in person whenever possible. I love that we have the streaming ability because I can't get there either. And I know Grandma and Grandpa sometimes live in another state and all that stuff, but I am a little bit miffed that it kind of diminishes crowds and stuff. So I feel like if I'm going to preach it, I got to walk the walk, right? So I'm going to try to make it there in person if I can and watch these guys play.
All right. I got a game on Round Guy Radio tomorrow night, and it's the Columbus Wildcats with their 5 wins already, taking on Lone Tree over in Lone Tree. I'm certain you're going to tell our listeners this is much watch television, at least on Facebook.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't know a ton about either one of those. You're way more versed on those than I am. But Columbus, I mean, what a turnaround. And then Lone Tree, there's some excitement there. That's probably a bit of a rivalry game too, I would think.
Well, I think, if you win this game, you're probably going to finish ahead of that school. And if you lose this game, you're probably going to finish behind them, So if you're talking about position, and I know Lone Tree really wants to scrape their way at least to the middle, but Columbus is coming in here 5-1 or 5-4. They got 6 wins last year, and that was the most they'd had in 20 years. So they could get 6 games on Round Guy Radio Friday, and Ellis Hills Carrier and Holbrook are going to be the 2 stars of both teams over there. There's a lot of other players that are very capable, but then there's then next week, Monday night, going to have Van Buren at Fairfield, and that's going to be JV varsity doubleheader. But then Thursday night next week, and I don't know exactly where I'm going to be the other nights, but Thursday night, we're going to do something I've always wanted to do. Remember me talking about we could have a Henry County championship game and invite New London and Mount Pleasant and and Winfield, Mount Union, and Waco all have a tournament and have a county championship. Well, we're going to do it in Fairfield. We're going to have the Round Guy Radio Jefferson County Championship game Thursday night as the Pekin Panthers come all the way from Packwood to Fairfield to take on the Fairfield Trojans in our very first ever county championship. What do you think about that?
It's pretty exciting stuff, man. That kind of reminds me of the old days. I used to get to go watch Waco play Mount Pleasant, and I always thought that was cool. And county teams, different levels, of course, different size schools, but it's still kind of a local bragging rights thing. Those are good times, man.
Well, I can tell you can hardly sustain yourself there. But I want to talk to you a little bit about something. Now that we've got 5 years in, we've got guys that we've covered a lot of at are in college. And I asked you, and I'm not saying that you have this time. I was letting our listeners know there's an episode coming up here where you kind of talk about some players that are going to the college and maybe making some strides up there. Can you give us a couple examples of maybe some guys that we might talk about that are in college?
You and I have talked about, Grandview winning the NAIA football championship there again a couple weeks ago. I got to watch that game on my phone. The screen is small, but it was worth it. They won again. I got to see Nolan Simpson play a lot of snaps in that game from Burlington, for those that remember him there.
K. Simpson.
Yes. Simeon Reichenbach got in there. I don't know if he's considered a starter. I'm not sure about that.
He's a tight end is what I was told. Last year he's a defensive end. This year he's a tight end.
Okay, well, I saw his jersey number out there a few times. And again, the screen is small. So I'm not always sure what I'm looking at when I'm trying to watch something on my phone. And I've got other things going on, too. I'll probably watch another game on TV. But, yeah, so that's kind of the most fresh thing in my mind. But we've seen Cam Buffington on the big stage there. Finally gets reps in some of these games that were kind of decided early on for the Hawkeyes. And when he gets out there, he shines. So we're all looking forward to next season because we think he's going to be out there a lot more. And it's exciting, man. I mean, we've been watching him since he was a freshman in high school and watching this thing unfold because he got that early scholarship offer years ago. And here it is coming to fruition. And we're finally going to see him on that Big Ten stage, and that's exciting.
Yeah, there's a lot of excitement around Cam Buffington and a lot of press, and it looks like he's going to be in the plans.
Yeah, I think he's going to. If he's not starting next year, he's going to get significant playing time. It wouldn't surprise me to see him be in the starting lineup next year. So looking ahead, that's exciting. Now, when I get into this and have a little time to put into it so I can kind of do a more detailed thing, just to preview, Loras College up there in Dubuque, man, they kind of going through tough times right now with their football program, but they recruit heavy down here. They love Southeast Iowa kids, and they've got a whole pile of them up there. And some of them have done some big things, including making it all conference this year. We got a couple locally. One, and I don't want to give it all away, but one being a receiver from Minneapolis and another being a kicker from here in Danville, where I live. So I'll be talking about those guys and some of their teammates and see if I can dig up some stats if there's any available. Some of these smaller schools, a little tougher to dig that up on. And the other thing I want to tell you, Dave, is I don't know how we can possibly follow all these kids through their entire college career because they go disperse well beyond our area here. A little bit harder to remember who all's where, what they're doing. Some of them don't stick. Some of them go to college with the intention of playing sports and they come back home. College wasn't for them or whatever. So, this will be kind of all over the place. We'll do the best we can with it.
Well, yeah, I talked to Hunter Hughes, and he looked like he'd had a surgery, had some stitches on his leg and a little bit of a brace there. And sad to say that his college career is over. He played a lot of JV games and stuff. And then somehow he tore up his knee and stuff that athletes do. But he was sure a great player. And so we're going to keep you up on some kids like that, because, our first year we didn't have any college players,
Yeah, you're right. We did.
But now, gosh, we got Iowa Hawkeyes and we got tight ends at West Point and guys going back-to-back national championships. And I'll work on some of the baseball guys. I did talk to Bo Buffett. He was down there one of the games, and he told me he's at Central Lee. And I said, "How's it going?" It's going pretty good. I guess he's getting to play down there, and he's playing pretty well. And I'll try to dig into when we're talking Van Buren. I need to know how Jackson Manning is doing because that kid was a great baseball player, and I got to find out. I know he's a DMAC, swinging the bat. So I'll tell you what I'll do, Scotty. I'll see if I can't get Coach Van Fleet to scope us out some basketball. You work on the football, I'll work on the baseball, guys, and that way we don't throw too much on you. And we can all talk a little bit about some of that stuff. But we're going to get you college updates because I just can't keep giving Scott enough stuff to do, especially in the off season there. But I appreciate you. Any other Pure Apex Power Supplement news or any other things that you want to talk out before we let you go back on your lunch break?
Well, that supplement stuff, that's a deep rabbit hole right now, man. We sell a bunch. It's the word's out, and we operate out of a gym, and that helps. But the gym went under a big renovation up there in Mount Pleasant. So if you haven't been in there and you're in the area and you want to check it out, come in and see it. It's not done yet, but it's close. It's updated. It's pretty in there and all that stuff. But we haven't got everything put back together, so we're kind of sitting in a little bit of a dead space right now. We got a little bit of stock up there, but I'm hesitant to order anymore because I don't have any place to put it at the moment, but things are going well with that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have much more than that other than looking forward to seeing some basketball tonight and hopefully maybe running into some people I haven't seen for a while. As you know, I used to live up that way. Of course, all those kids and stuff have graduated, moved on to other things like Hunter, who's a kid I miss seeing. He's one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah. We should mention Colton Lichty also played sparingly in that championship season this year and pretty heavily on the JV squad. He didn't make the playoff team, but he did get in some games, a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit of special teams. And so they've got they've got a couple Waco kids up there and Suitcase Simpson, but he was really good too, wasn't he? We could always tell he was going to do some big stuff.
Yeah, I remember when he was going through the recruiting process. I even chatted with his dad a little bit during that time when he was still in high school. And, Nolan got attention from some smaller Division I schools. And I have no doubt that he couldn't have walked onto the team over there at Western Illinois, or maybe he got a scholarship offer. I can't remember, but I have no doubt that he could play football at that level and do well. But he ends up at an NAIA school. Okay, that's really the smallest level of college sports there is. But it's still no joke, especially if you get on a team in a program like Grandview. These guys are perennial powers. There's guys that play on that team that might have potential to go pro if the right scout saw him or whatever. Some of this is luck. And he's one of those that I just don't know if he isn't in that group, man. He's a holy terror, and he's put on a lot of size, and you can tell he's worked hard at it. We always knew he had the mentality going for him. That's why opponents hated him because I was going to tell you, Dave, I was thinking about coming up with just one. You're the guy that's best with nicknames and come up with awards and things like that. But I've always wanted to kind of honor the thing that, Cam Buffington brought to this area when he played high school here. And now he's off into college and doing great things there too. He's the one player that kind of stood out, and a kind of kid that inspires me to, want to talk about these boys in the first place the way we do. He kind of is, I guess he's kind of the poster child for it. It's all of them, but he's the guy that is the face that everybody knows because he's kind of the infamous one. But I thought I should come up with a Cam Buffington Award for football season.
Oh, that would be awesome! Like the Cy Young Award in baseball,
Well, I'm going to tie this back into Nolan Simpson because Nolan Simpson would be a guy that would win this award if he were in high school right now.
Well, certainly.
And the reason behind it is not only to honor Cam and what he did, bringing attention and eyes on Southeast Iowa when he was here and everything, but the fact that when I watched that boy play, he was so far and above, bigger and stronger, not only looking, but the way he played with whatever sport he was in, especially football. That he's one of those kids where, gosh, when he's running the ball and he gets tackled, I'm worried about the kid that tackled him getting up off the ground. That's how much of a physical specimen he was. And it seems like we get one of those every year, if not more, around here. You could say maybe Mason Klaus from Keokuk was one of those guys this year. I have one knee, and I got to watch him real up close in the Unidome this year, that I would give this year, 2020, we'll call it 2025 since that was football season, the Cam Buffington Award. And it would be Gabe Brisker, not Gabe Brisker, it's a Wilton kid. I just had his name here. Gatlin Rogers.
Gatlin Rogers, you'd give him the Cam Buffington Award?
Cam Buffington Award, because that kid, he stood out. Not just the eye test, but when he played, he was a nightmare for opponents. In fact, I've been thinking about calling it the Cam Buffington Nightmare award because a guy that is I want to talk about a guy that is just absolutely scary out there. Scary to look at, scary to have to match up against. He's just physically dominating. And even when his team is outclassed or outmatched, like Wilton was up there against that juggernaut they played in the dome, this kid was still getting hits. Gatlin Rogers was not being pushed around out there by the eventual state champions that they faced, man. He was imposing his will out there on the line when he was blocking, when he was catching passes, when he was on the defensive end, I mean, the guy stood out, man. And it was the only time I got to see what play in person was that game up at the Dome. And I knew about Gatlin. I'd seen him play the year before. But, this was a big, strong kid that just really caught my eye. And I said, that's my Cam Buffington Award guy right there, Gatlin Rogers. So there's a little hope.
I'm looking forward to that. That was like you remember that movie? What was it? Where Adam Sandler's in there. I think it's Billy Madison. So I'm glad I called that guy.
Yes.
I'm glad I called that guy today, and that guy was you. That sounds great. You got me all pumped up, Scotty. What the fuck?
Well, yeah, it's football season is over.
Hey, what about this a big announcement we got covering we got the contract to broadcast all the Cedar Rapids Titans games. You excited about that too?
Yeah, that'll get us through the spring anyway. You know me, I do love my basketball season, and I love summer, but football is where it's at for me, and my mind's always on it, no matter what time of year it is.
Yeah, and it's going to be February 15th is our first game. It's a 5:00 game against the week after the Super Bowl. The Midwest Monsters, I think, is the opponent. But I got a meeting Sunday up there in Cedar Rapids, and I'll have some more information. But I'm told we have multiple players with NFL experience on this team.
Well, that one game that I got to go with you last year really had some talented guys on it that it kind of shocked me that they were playing at this low of a level of pro football. Not everybody, but there's a handful of them. You never know what path goes on for folks in their lives after high school or whatever. But yeah, there's definitely some quality athletes playing that sport.
Well, we're like to say what do you think of the improvements we've made on our broadcast?
Well, I haven't personally got to sit and watch you one yet, because every time you're on, I think I'm.
Well, I hear you there, but we made a lot of big improvements, and we're going to be able to keep that moving forward for you guys. And I better let you get back off your lunch break here, but I sure appreciate you coming in. Is there anything else you want to talk about that we didn't get a chance to talk about?
I think we're good. I wanted to ask you one quick question. Are you officially YouTubing now? Is that worked out? The kinks worked out?
The kinks aren't worked out. We got the channel. We've got everything we need. I tried to go live once, and it just wasn't recording. And I had to switch it back over to Facebook. But the football season will be on there. I'm going to just do a test somewhere. I got another guy's kind of a tech help. When someday me and him will get together and we'll do some kind of a test. And when I get it all figured out, but it ain't beat me yet. I'm about 0-10, but there's going to be around 11. And we're gonna win that one eventually. But we're gonna actually. I'll make another kind of announcement. Eventually, we're gonna be a YouTube channel, and that's pretty much what we're gonna broadcast off of. Because that's where the viewers are, and that's where the opportunity to get big audiences are. But our numbers are incredible, dude. I mean, we had over 200 people watch the game Tuesday night. We're doing really good, and especially breaking in that far east part, down where you live, where they're really not on the YouTube or the Facebook much down there, and we're building a pretty good audience up. And gosh, we had Notre Dame on, and we had West Burlington on, and we had Meepo on, and then we had Holy Trinity on, and then I guess we had Fort Madison was down there at that tournament, and Keokuk was down there in that tournament. We had Keokuk and Notre Dame on, demon at Christmas. I guess they're appreciating us there in the east where you live.
That's good to know. I just wanted to check in with you on that YouTube thing, because I do think if you're wanting to really turn into a live stream type thing, that is definitely the route to go. So I'm excited for that.
Well, I'll tell you what happened to me is I was raised by my grandmother, and she breastfed me, and I don't think I got quite the same nutrition as everybody else did. So I was a little slower than the other kids, and it affects me today. I still won't drink milk unless it's expired. So, but I'm just a little slower than everybody else, but I'm a determined son of a gun, and I just keep going. And once we get the YouTube thing going and flying, and I think we'll debut that, I'm a little hesitant to go full bore onto it because we built such a good Facebook audience. I mean, that's where everybody knows to come and see us. And when I make the announcements, we're going live. We got people waiting for us the minute we broadcast. So, and the audience just keeps getting bigger. And if I can get over 100 people a game, I'm going to be super happy with that, Scotty.
Yeah, I don't blame you there. And it's good for, like I said, I'm certainly not trying to bash on the streaming. I just want to encourage folks that are able to get out and it live, in person to go ahead and do that. And when you can't, hey, that's where the streaming comes in. And some folks don't even live close by, And,
you know what? Like it seems like to me, the people that go to the game, then they run home and watch the game on the podcast or on the Facebook lives and everything. So yeah, it's fun, and we're having fun, and the audiences are liking us and appreciating us. Every time I do a game, I get a lot of parents coming up telling me how much they appreciate us coming down there. And yeah, Round Guy Radio is really, I think we're going to try to step up and be a bigger player in the market. And when we do, we'll already have this giant base. But I mean, as far as the numbers go, by the numbers, we're as good or better than everybody. Just by, because I can see how many people are watching their games, and I can see how many people are watching my games, and nobody's doing better than me. I can promise you that on any night of the week.
Yeah, it's all good stuff.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you later, Scotty. Thanks for calling in.
You got it.
All right.